Hello everyone, my name is David. Today we are going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The date was September 5th, 2015. Early in the day, an Air France flight had already taken off from India's Kempegowda International Airport, bound for Paris, Charles de Gaulle Airport. But just a few minutes later, a call from the security room at Kempegowda International Airport was made to the pilot of the Air France flight. The officer in the security room told the pilot, "You need to bring your plane back to the airport as soon as possible. This is an emergency." When the pilot asked for the reason behind this, the officer told him, "Don't panic. But we have just received a security threat stating that there is an illegal object on your aircraft. That's why you need to calmly land your plane on the vacant runway we direct you to." After this news, discussions began between the cabin crew and security officers about whether or not to inform the passengers. Meanwhile, the Air France pilots had already changed their route to land back at Kempegowda International Airport. But before descending, the cabin crew informed all passengers about the situation and advised everyone to stay calm. After some time, the Air France aircraft managed to land on one of the airport's runways, and as soon as the plane stopped, all passengers were quickly evacuated. However, before being taken inside the airport, all passengers underwent a quick security check. Their luggage was kept inside the plane itself to prevent any chaos inside the airport. Following this, the explosive response team conducted a thorough inspection of the aircraft, but the security agencies found nothing suspicious on the flight. However, this incident didn't only involve the Air France flight. This entire sequence began at 1:20 a.m. on September 5th. At that time, the terminal manager of Kempegowda International Airport received a message on WhatsApp. When he read the message, it claimed that there were illegal objects on 3 international flights departing from Kempegowda International Airport. According to the message, one of the flights belonged to Lufthansa Airlines, one to Saudi Arabian Airlines, and one was the Air France flight. Besides this message, the next one said, "To mark the victory of a notorious militant group, there will be major disturbances mid-air on the Air France flight to Paris and the Hajj flight to Jeddah. Today's third target, Lufthansa to Germany. A notorious militant group will destroy India. Stop us if you can. Get ready to see the fireworks above the sky today. 3 illegal objects placed in the airport cargo sector are ready to explode at 3 a.m. You can't trace any of our men, so at least try to trace those illegal objects. This won't happen today. It will happen tomorrow at 3 a.m. However, that day, these threats weren't limited to Kempegowda International Airport in Bengaluru, Karnataka. From the same number, multiple threatening messages were also sent to the officials at India's capital Delhi and India's financial hub, Mumbai airports. These threats caused panic at 3 major international airports in 3 different parts of India. Considering the seriousness of the threat, Indian security agencies went on high alert and stopped the Saudi Arabian and Lufthansa flights from taking off. Meanwhile, the Air France flight had already departed, but it was soon contacted by the Kempegowda International Airport Security Room and was called back. At the airports in Bengaluru, Delhi, and Mumbai, a total of 7 international flights received threats about illegal objects. However, during the investigation, security agencies did not find anything suspicious on any of the flights. Still, as a result, several flights, including those from Saudi Arabian Airlines and Lufthansa, were affected for 3 to 4 hours. Additionally, some flights had to cancel their departures due to heavy delays and had to arrange food and accommodations for all their passengers. The delay and rerouting of these 7 flights ended up costing the airlines and airports over $1 million that day. But now, the police in all 3 cities immediately began investigating the incidents. The first thing they did was trace the number from which the airport officials had received the messages. The police found that the phone number was registered to a man named Saju, who lives in the east wing of Fernhill Gardens in Bengaluru. Once this was known, the police quickly reached Sarju's doorstep, and seeing the police at his door, Sarju panicked completely. But without asking him anything, the police immediately arrested him. After that, they searched his house, but the phone number that led them there was nowhere to be found. The police then took Sarju to the Yelahanka police station, where they began questioning him strictly from the start. But from the beginning, Sarju kept telling the police that he was an honest man working at an IT company, living a peaceful life in Fernhill Gardens with his wife and 2 children. He insisted that he had not issued any threats to harm any aircraft, nor had he sent any messages via SMS or WhatsApp to any airport official. In fact, Sarju even denied recognizing the number from which the threat messages had been sent. However, by that time, Bengaluru police had already gathered all the evidence against Sarju. So, when they showed him the documents used to purchase the SIM card, it came as a huge shock to him. The police even showed Sarju a Facebook account through which he was following a notorious extremist group. Based on all this evidence, it appeared that Sarju was also working for a well-known extremist organization. But even then, Sarju kept telling the police that it was all false, that he knew nothing, that he was just an ordinary working man with a simple family life. Yet, as the investigation progressed, the police themselves began to feel that Sarju might not be an extremist after all. In fact, the Bangalore police examined the cell towers to which the threatening messages had connected. Then they checked Sarju's location on September 5th, 2015, and found that his location showed he was at home during the night of September 4th to 5th. Moreover, the phone that had sent the threatening messages was connected to a completely different tower. But the case took another major turn when the police checked the call detail records of that number. They discovered that the number had once made a call to Sarju's wife, Danya Babu. After this revelation, the police asked Sarju to call his wife, Danya, and ask her to come to the police station. So now, at the police's request, Sarju called his wife, Danya, and told her about his arrest. Hearing this, Danya got nervous and called a neighbor friend, Gokul, and a relative, asking them to come with her to the police station. Within a short time, all 3 of them arrived at the police station in a car. Meanwhile, the Bengaluru police's technical team was surprised when they received a signal that the number they had placed under surveillance was moving. Gradually, the location of the threatening call began approaching the Yelahanka police station, and as soon as Sarju's wife, Danya, parked her car outside the station, the location also stopped there. After this, before questioning Danya, the police decided to search her car. During the search, they found a cell phone lying under the driver's seat. This once again raised suspicion on Sarju and his wife, Danya. The police then showed Danya the phone number from which the threatening calls had been made to the airport staff, as she too had received a call from that number once. But after seeing the number, Danya checked her phone's contact list for a few seconds and then told the police that the number did not belong to her husband, Sarju, but to her neighbor and close friend, Gokul Macheri. After hearing this, Gokul Macheri came under police suspicion, and they immediately arrested him. Then, when the police took Gokul to Sarju's flat, the phone's Wi-Fi connected not to Sarju's apartment router, but to Gokul's apartment router. This made it quite clear to the police that the one who caused panic at the Bengaluru, Delhi and Mumbai airports on the night between September 4th and 5 was none other than Gokul Macheri. The police then took everyone to an interrogation center, and when they applied pressure on Gokul, he broke down. He confessed everything to the police from the beginning to the end, explaining why he planned all of this and what benefit he hoped to gain in the future. In fact, 34-year-old Gokul Macheri, also known as MG Gokul, was a resident of Thrissur, a city in the Indian state of Kerala. Gokul and Sarju's wife Danya had gone to the same school since childhood, and as they grew up together, they fell in love. After finishing school, they decided to attend the same college and enrolled together in an engineering college in Thrissur. Their love and affection for each other continued in college as well. At that point, they wanted to get married, but their families did not approve. When Danya's family arranged her marriage with Saju, Gokul decided to move on from his love and focus on his career. After that, Gokul moved to India's capital, Delhi, where he followed his passion and worked hard day and night. A few months later, while working in Delhi, Gokul fell in love with a girl named Anuradha, who was in the same profession. Anuradha was from the eastern Indian state of Jharkhand, known for its beauty and rich mineral resources. Gradually, the two began talking, and soon Anuradha also felt that they were meant for each other. As a result, they decided to get married and took permission from their families to tie the knot in 2009. Later, Anuradha gave birth to a daughter, and the happiness in their home increased even more. Meanwhile, in 2009, Danya and Saju also moved to Bengaluru, often referred to as India's Silicon Valley, in search of a better future. While living there, the couple had 2 children. On the other hand, over time, cracks began to appear in the relationship between Gokul and Anuradha. The reason behind this was said to be Anuradha's affair with a younger man. Gokul used to work in the office every day from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., while after the birth of their daughter, Anuradha left her job at an IT company and started teaching at an institute. It was during her time at this institute that Anuradha fell in love with a student younger than her. But one day, Gokul happened to read some SMS messages on Anuradha's phone, and those messages were proof of her illicit relationship because they had been sent by her student, her boyfriend. After this incident, Gokul and Anuradha had many heated arguments. Anuradha kept shouting and trying to convince her husband that she had no affair with any student and that he was just a regular student. But after reading those messages, Gokul was 100% convinced that his wife Anuradha was having an affair with one of her students even after giving birth to their daughter. This led to daily fights between Gokul and Anuradha. Gokul now wanted a divorce but couldn't go through with it because of their daughter, and this is the point where Gokul's dangerous conspiracy began. After feeling betrayed in love by his wife, Anuradha, Gokul turned to social media. It was 2011, and one day on a holiday, Gokul was scrolling through Facebook when he suddenly came across Danya Babu's Facebook profile. Gokul sent her a friend request, and as soon as Danya accepted it, they started talking again through Facebook. During these conversations, Gokul's old school and college feelings for Danya rekindled. This led him to start thinking again about divorcing his wife, Anuradha. But at the same time, he decided that he would not divorce Anuradha in a normal way. Gokul made a plan to first gather solid proof of Anuradha's affair with her student. Gokul's father-in-law means Anuradha's father was a retired superintendent of police, and he had complete trust in his son-in-law, Gokul Macheri. That's why Gokul decided he would show all the evidence of Anuradha's extramarital affair to his father-in-law, and then tell him that he wanted a divorce. But now Gokul started spending more time thinking about how he could collect solid proof of Anuradha's affair. That's when he remembered that his wife was a deeply religious woman and had great faith in astrology. In fact, Anuradha had immense devotion to Sai Baba of Shirdi, and Gokul knew this very well. Before moving forward, let me tell you that Sai Baba of Shirdi was a great saint of the 19th century who always preached love, faith, and the unity of all religions. Both Hindus and Muslims worshipped him because he emphasized the oneness of God throughout his life. But Gokul misused his name and Anuradha's devotion. In 2011, Gokul created a fake email ID in the name of Sai Baba and started emailing his own wife, Anuradha, pretending to be a true devotee of Sai Baba. Anuradha had no idea that it was actually her husband, Gokul, behind all this. which is why she easily fell into his trap. Through emails, Gokul, posing as Baba's devotee, started extracting all the information from Anuradha. After 6 months, when Anuradha finally began to trust the stranger, who, posing as a devotee of Sai Baba, had been trying to explain the meaning of life to her, she revealed to him that she was in a relationship with one of her students, despite being married. This was exactly the proof Gokul had been waiting for, and taking advantage of the moment, he, through email, asked Anuradha to confess her extramarital affair in front of her husband, who was actually Gokul himself. Since Anuradha was deeply influenced by the so-called Sai Baba devotee, she agreed. One day she went to her husband, Gokul, and confessed everything about her relationship with her student. She even promised that she would end all ties with him. But just 3 months later, Gokul discovered that Anuradha had not completely ended her relationship with the student. She was still in regular contact with her boyfriend and continued to talk to him secretly. Following this, Gokul created another email ID under the name Asha and presented Asha to Anuradha as a spiritual and astrological woman. Gokul knew very well that his wife strongly believed in astrology. This made it easy once again for Anuradha to fall into Gokul's trap, and she started trusting Asha completely, believing her to be a spiritual guru. However, Gokul was doing all this only to get closer to his lover, Danya Babu, and in his eyes, his wife, Anuradha, was the biggest obstacle in their path. He had convinced himself that unless he removed Anuradha from his life, he could never be with Danya. To accomplish this, Gokul, using the fake Asha astrologer email ID, laid out a new plan against Anuradha. He told her that a spiritual ritual would be performed for her, but for that she would have to send an inappropriate photo with her boyfriend. Asha, explaining the supposed benefits of the ritual, told Anuradha that it would allow her to spend the rest of her life with her boyfriend without divorcing Gokul, and that Gokul would be powerless against them. Believing the words of the spiritual guru Asha at the end of 2013, Anuradha took an inappropriate photo with her student boyfriend and sent it to Asha. But she had no idea that the photo she was sending to a spiritual guru was actually going straight to her husband, Gokul. Now, Gokul had solid evidence against Anuradha, and he quietly showed the picture to her family members in an attempt to remove her from his path. However, he never spoke to Anuradha about it. As a result, Anuradha lost her respect in the eyes of her own family without even knowing it. Meanwhile, Gokul became a trustworthy and honorable man in the eyes of her family, especially her retired police superintendent father. Anuradha's family never spoke to her about any of this, and they were also unaware that Gokul had visited Bengaluru multiple times to meet his lover, Danya. Eventually, Gokul grew tired of traveling back and forth between Delhi and Bengaluru, and he also couldn't stay away from Danya. So he decided to move to Bengaluru and began insisting to his company that he be transferred to the Bengaluru branch. Danya, the wife of Saju, even helped Gokul find a flat in her own neighborhood with the help of a broker. This brought Gokul closer to Danya, and after getting close to her, he made his next move. In June 2015, Gokul, using the Asha email ID, sent several emails to Anuradha asking her to consume a large amount of alcohol so she would be prepared to perform the so-called ritual. To convince Anuradha, Gokul told her through Asha's email that this grand ritual was meant to reunite her with her boyfriend. Hearing this, Anuradha started believing more and more of what Asha said. Then came the date, June 28th, 2015. On this day, to perform the grand ritual, Anuradha drank a large amount of alcohol. Now, Gokul, madly in love, had been waiting for this one moment. And when he saw Anuradha in a drunken state, he took advantage of the situation and struck her on the back of the head with a religious idol from the house. In addition, he hit her on the forehead twice. Then, when Anuradha lost consciousness, Gokul rubbed her head against a table to make it look like she had died from falling on it. Once Gokul was sure that Anuradha had died, he hid the idol somewhere. After that, executing the next step of his plan, he called all his relatives around 4 a.m. on June 29th to inform them that Anuradha had died in an accident. Gokul had planned this conspiracy in such a way that people would believe Anuradha's death was just an accident. That's why, before killing her, he had earned her father's trust, and everything afterward unfolded according to his plan. In fact, when the investigation into Anuradha's death began, the police first faced resistance from her parents in getting the post-mortem done. Then, once the post-mortem report came out, the investigators began to suspect something about her death. After all, following Anuradha's suspicious death, her husband, Gokul, became the prime suspect. But at that point, a key player helped him out, and that was Anuradha's father, a retired police superintendent. After Anuradha's death, the police started interrogating Gokul Macheri strictly. But Anuradha's father insisted to the police that his son-in-law was innocent, asking why they were suspecting him, saying he would never do such a thing. After this, Anuradha's body was taken to Gokul's home in Thrissur, where her last rites were performed according to all religious customs. But in reality, only Gokul and the four walls of their Bengaluru flat knew how Anuradha actually died. Aside from that, the investigators got nowhere. However, after Anuradha's death, Gokul and his childhood love Danya were already halfway toward being together. But here, Gokul also starts thinking that if Danya gets divorced from her husband Saju, then nothing would stop the two of them from living together. Gokul learns that there's a lot of tension between Saju and Danya, and the two frequently fight. At one point, Danya even told Gokul in passing that she was considering divorcing Saju. Hearing this, Gokul became even more confident and started coming up with ideas to widen the rift between Danya and Saju. Then one day, Gokul sent Danya a letter, posing as the archbishop of a church in Bengaluru, since both Danya and her husband Saju were Christians. You'll be surprised to know that in his first letter as the archbishop, Gokul told Danya not to divorce her husband Saju, but he did this only to gain Danya's trust. However, after a few letters, he very cunningly began planting the idea of divorce in Danya's mind. In addition, Gokul also sent several letters to Saju, posing as the archbishop, claiming that Danya had confessed to the church that she was unhappy in her marriage and wanted a divorce. But here, Gokul's plan didn't succeed because although Saju had differences with his wife, they weren't severe enough to justify a divorce. Then when Gokul found out that his plan hadn't worked, he began devising a new one to get Saju out of his way. As part of this new plan, Gokul somehow gained Danya's trust and obtained Saju's identification documents like his permanent account number, PAN card, passport, and mark sheets. Using these, he purchased a smartphone and several SIM cards in Saju's name. Gokul's plan was to frame Saju as a member of a notorious militant group so he could easily eliminate him. Since he had already murdered his wife, Anuradha, and no one had found out about it, he thought that by getting rid of Saju, he could live his life with his childhood love, Danya. Then, to make Saju look like an extremist, Gokul started calling a businessman in Delhi using the SIM cards purchased in Saju's name under the pretense of seeking funds for a militant group. But this plan completely failed, so he came up with a bigger move to draw the police's attention towards Saju. As part of this plan, he first created a Facebook account in Saju's name and started following a notorious militant group from it. Then, using the same SIM cards, he began calling staff at 3 major airports in India, threatening to make major disturbance in the aircraft. But in the end, Gokul got caught in his own trap. Had he not sent those threatening messages to airport officials, his wife's murder might never have come to light. This case became a major topic of discussion in 2015 because Gokul had used his cunning mind to try and win over his childhood love, Danya Babu. It also gained attention because Gokul Macheri was an educated man working at an IT company, and the way he misused his knowledge for criminal purposes shocked everyone. Afterward, everyone assumed that Saju's wife Danya was also involved in Gokul's crimes, but police investigations revealed that Danya was unaware of everything Gokul had done. Since 2015, there have been no new updates in this case, but it's said that the trial is still ongoing. Anuradha hadn't done anything wrong. If Gokul had wanted, they could have had a normal divorce. But the punishment for Gokul's crimes was ultimately borne by their 2-year-old daughter. She lost her mother and her father was arrested for her mother's murder. Seeing all this, Danya had expressed the wish to raise Gokul's daughter herself. However, that didn't happen. Authorities placed Gokul's daughter in the care of Anuradha's parents, and with that, the case currently stands still. So, with that, the Anuradha murder case comes to an end right here. If you appreciate our efforts, like and share this video. If you haven't subscribed, do so now. Thank you.